Picture this. You're driving through the sun-drenched hills of La Rioja, or perhaps the oak forests of Extremadura. You step into a dimly lit, rustic workshop. The air is heavy with the scent of smoked garlic, curing pork, and rich, red pimentón de la Vera. You imagine buying a small local fabrica, hanging sausages from ancient wooden rafters, selling to passing tourists, and living out a beautiful, slow-paced Mediterranean dream. It sounds incredibly romantic, doesn't it? But wake up, because the moment you sign the deed to that workshop, the romance dies, and the math begins. Most people look at a chorizo workshop and see a traditional food business. They see a pig, some spices, and a lot of waiting. But that's a dangerous illusion. If you step into this arena with a purely culinary mindset, the European Union's hygiene inspectors and your local utility company will bankrupt you before your first batch even hits the shelf. The truth, when you open a chorizo workshop in Spain, you are not in the meat business. You are in the highly regulated, capital-intensive business of microclimate management and biochemical manipulation. Before you can even slice your first casing, you have to decide what kind of game you are playing. The Spanish chorizo market is not a monolith. It is deeply stratified, and your revenue structure completely depends on which of these 4 distinct models you choose to build. First, there's the purist. This is the romantic ideal. You are producing small-batch chorizo using heritage breeds, selling directly to local markets and high-end tourists. Your volume is incredibly low, but your profit margins are massive. You have high pricing power because you are selling a story. However, your scalability is virtually zero. You are capped by the physical space in your curing room and the hours in your day. Second, the supermarket staple. This is where the volume starts. You are producing the vacuum-sealed, everyday chorizo that families across Madrid or Barcelona buy for their Tuesday night lentils. This is a brutal, high-volume, low-margin game. You are competing for supermarket shelf space against giants. Your revenue is steady, but to survive, you must ruthlessly optimize your supply chain with automated machines and rapid curing chambers. Third, the global ambassador. This workshop focuses entirely on taking high-end Spanish culture to the rest of the world. London, New York, Tokyo. The margins here can be astronomical, but the overhead is equally staggering. You aren't just selling meat. You are selling to Michelin star restaurants. The catch: you face massive logistical costs, terrifying customs regulation, and you live and die by international currency exchange rates. Finally, the Ibérico elite. This is a category all its own. You are dealing with cerdo Ibérico, pigs that roam free eating acorns. This is closer to trading fine wine or luxury watches than selling food. The product takes months, sometimes years, to cure. You are catering to the ultra-wealthy, and a single product line can generate the revenue of 10 mid-market workshops. So, you've picked your model. You have your grandmother's recipe. You have some startup capital. You think you just need to buy some pork, some paprika, and some string. Think again. The barrier to entry in the European cured meats sector is a fortress of hidden costs that outsiders simply do not anticipate. Let's talk about the stainless steel tax. Forget the romantic wooden tables and brick walls. Modern food safety standards require an environment cleaner than a hospital operating room. You are investing heavily in food-grade stainless steel, epoxy resin floors, automated sanitizing airlocks, and industrial drainage systems. Outfitting even a modest commercial workspace to EU health codes can easily cost tens to hundreds of thousands of euros before a single piece of meat enters the building. Then, there is the climate control infrastructure. Chorizo cures through a precise dance of temperature and humidity. In the old days, you relied on the natural winter air. Today, if the weather shifts, you lose your entire inventory. Industrial HVAC system, commercial dehumidifiers, and digital climate monitors are your biggest physical investments. You are essentially building a giant, perfectly calibrated refrigerator. But the silent killer of novice sausage makers is the evaporation cash flow gap. You buy the raw meat today, and you pay your suppliers in 30 days. But your premium chorizo needs to hang in a curing room for 3, 4, or even 6 months. During that time, the meat loses up to 30% of its water weight. You are literally watching your inventory shrink, while your cash is trapped, hanging from the ceiling. You still pay rent, electricity, and payroll, but you won't see a single cent of revenue from that batch for half a year. And don't forget the bureaucracy of authenticity. If you want to sell your product under a prestigious regional label, you must pay for regular audits, lab testing, and certification. Authenticity is not free. It is a recurring annual subscription fee. This brings us to the core irony of the chorizo business, a reality that completely breaks the brains of first-time investors. To sell a 300-year-old rustic tradition, you must operate a 21st-century biochemical laboratory. Your customers are paying a premium because they want to feel connected to the past. But to consistently deliver that exact same flavor, texture, and safety profile at a commercial scale, you have to eliminate nature entirely. That beautiful white mold on the outside of the casing, it looks wild and natural. But in a modern workshop, it is often a highly controlled, lab-grown strain of penicillium, purchased in freeze-dried packets and sprayed onto the sausages to outcompete dangerous bacteria. You are selling the romance of nature by using extreme technology to defeat nature. To see this in action, look at the broader ecosystem represented by the Spanish Chorizo Consortium. Historically, many small workshops struggled. They had great products, but they were fighting each other in a saturated domestic market with razor-thin margins. A local consumer isn't going to pay a massive premium for something their uncle makes in his garage. The pivot for survival was collective export. By joining association, independent workshops banded together to standardize quality, audit facilities, and slap a unified authentic seal on their packaging. What happened to the economics? It fundamentally shifted their pricing power. Broad industry reports highlight that Spanish cured meat exports have seen massive volume growth over the last decade. By standardizing a traditional product to meet strict international import laws, a mid-sized workshop transforms its business model. They absorb higher compliance costs, but gain access to a foreign consumer base willing to pay triple the price. The workshops that survived didn't do it by making better chorizo. They did it by mastering international trade logistics. Because this business relies on agriculture and microbiology, your balance sheet is always at the mercy of variables you cannot control. In a good year, everything aligns. There's a bumper crop of natural feed, driving down pork costs. The Spanish winter is naturally crisp, slashing energy bills. International shipping lanes are clear, and a positive review puts your region on the map. You are converting raw agricultural commodities into high-value luxury goods with maximum efficiency. Cash flows in. But in a bad year, the reality of global economics hits your rustic workshop like a freight train. An outbreak of swine fever spikes raw pork prices overnight. You cannot pass a 40% cost increase onto supermarkets without being delisted. An energy crisis doubles your utility bill for those 24/7 curing rooms. Then, the worst happens. A slight malfunction in your humidity sensors goes unnoticed for 48 hours during a heat wave. Unwanted, dangerous mold blooms. Because of strict food safety laws, you cannot salvage it. You must throw thousands of kilos of aging inventory into the incinerator. In a single bad year, soaring input costs and a ruined batch can wipe out a decade of profits. When you build a chorizo workshop, you aren't just blending meat and spices. You are trying to domesticate time itself. Anyone can buy the ingredients, but in the economics of cured meats, you don't actually own the recipe. You own the patience and the technology to let time do its work without destroying you first.